A massive reallocation of wealth and status is underway, driven by a structural change most people are misreading. While headlines focus on the threat of mass unemployment, the more immediate pressure is the structural devaluation of white-collar labor. Economists call this the Great Repricing. For decades, the professional class was built on a scarcity premium. Skills in law, finance, and engineering were slow and expensive to acquire, allowing humans to charge high rates for their specialized knowledge. Generative models have introduced a permanent supply shock. They produce functional intelligence in seconds, making textbook average cognitive output computationally cheap and infinitely abundant. In the early 20th century, Henry Ford realized that his workers were also his customers, and that paying them a living wage created the very demand that fueled his growth. Today, executives like Jack Dorsey are aggressively compressing their workforces to capture AI-driven efficiency gains. They're signaling a new reality, where the friction of hiring and training no longer gives workers their historical leverage. Possessing and regurgitating routine information no longer commands a premium. That structural advantage has evaporated. This chart shows how the labor market is reshaping itself into a barbell economy. The squeezed middle represents routine cognitive tasks, the mid-level professional work that is easily predicted and automated by large language models. Wealth is congregating at the poles. On one end, you have essential physical labor requiring manual dexterity. On the other, you have high-end, irreducible human judgment. If your daily value comes from following a predictable routine, your economic leverage is trending toward zero. Historically, finding answers was the most difficult and valuable part of professional work. Expertise was defined by what you could retrieve and synthesize. Today, AI has made answers cheap and instantaneous. The true value has migrated to framing the right questions and validating the machine's complex outputs for real-world accuracy. We can see this transition in the history of automated teller machines. In the 1970s, critics predicted these machines would end the banking profession. Instead, bank tellers evolved. Once freed from the mechanical task of counting cash, they transitioned into complex relationship and wealth management, creating more value for the bank than before. This is the 70-30 rule. Let AI handle the 70% volume, routine, boilerplate cognitive work. Your survival depends on shifting entirely to the remaining 30%, the domain of edge cases, strategy, and empathy. Top-tier professionals no longer compete on speed or volume. They compete entirely on architectural judgment. As we integrate these new tools, we encounter a deep biological vulnerability that can undermine our professional survival. The Mira model explains how humans adapt to machines that use linguistic reciprocity. When an AI mirrors your tone and style, your brain instinctively creates a sense of psychological proximity. This leads to an epistemic trust trap. Because the AI sounds confident and fluent, we are biologically wired to trust its output, even though it lacks lived experience and real-world accountability. Successful professionals maintain strict boundaries. They treat AI as a digital confidant for brainstorming, but they never outsource their critical thinking to the machine. If you defer to the machine's confident tone and stop applying independent oversight, you cease to be a judge agent. Without that human validation, you aren't an expert. You are just another piece of the automated chain. AI is a prediction engine. This means that any comfortable, predictable routine in your work is a prime target for automation. To remain irreplaceable, you must build adaptation muscle using the ADAPT framework, constantly assessing and practicing new ways of working to stay ahead of the disruption. The microvariation method is a tactical way to do this. By forcing your brain to process minor daily novelties, like changing your workspace or commute, you rewire your mind for flexibility. This builds the neural pathways required to handle massive professional uncertainty without panicking. It keeps your cognitive responses sharp and unpredictable. Embracing constant, calculated change is the only way to ensure your judgment remains something a machine cannot replicate. Economic value has migrated from the possession of information to the application of lived judgment. To thrive in this shift, you must break your addiction to routine, maintain strict psychological boundaries with your tools, and live exclusively in the 30% of work that requires complex human oversight. Generative machines will provide the what, but the greatest wealth and status will belong to